Antes de eu dar a aula aqui de inglês hoje, eu quero falar do Buy Me a Coffee em português. Se você não sabe o que é o Buy Me a Coffee, ele é um site para criadores de conteúdo, onde esses criadores de conteúdo podem criar um conteúdo de uma maneira mais exclusiva, tá? Você pode se inscrever, virar um membro, e aí toda semana você vai receber alguma coisa no seu e-mail, alguma dica. No meu caso, dica de inglês, e eu forneço esse conteúdo especializado para os membros do Buy Me a Coffee. Lá eu compartilho dicas de pronúncia e de vocabulário mais voltados para alunos que estão do intermediário para cima, tá? Então eu falo de vocabulário do dia a dia, eu falo de leitura de jornal, eu falo de pronúncia, tem muito vídeo de pronúncia. Então, se você quer melhorar a sua pronúncia, a maneira como você se expressa em inglês e treinar esses músculozinhos lindos da sua boca, o Buy Me a Coffee tá aí para isso, tá certo? Se você tiver interesse, quiser saber mais, entre em contato comigo, eu vou deixar meu e-mail aqui, também vou deixar o próprio link do Buy Me a Coffee, dá uma olhadinha lá. É muito, muito legal. Mas se você não quer virar membro pagante e exclusivo da minha comunidade ainda, você pode se inscrever da mesma forma nas minhas newsletters, e aí toda semana ou a cada 2 semanas você vai receber um e-mail meu com texto escrito em inglês e sempre tem vocabulário novo, tá? Mas é um vocabulário voltado para alunos do intermediário para cima. E quando eu digo intermediário, é aquele aluno do B2 que tá saindo do... tá com um pezinho no C1 e um pezinho no C2. Porque os meus textos são um pouquinho mais complexos, então se você tá mais pendendo pro pré-intermediário, talvez você sinta um pouco de dificuldade de ler as minhas newsletters, mas mesmo assim, é um conhecimento que se você tá interessado, se você é curioso, é pra você, ok? Então, dá uma olhadinha lá no link na minha descrição. Okay, so today I'll be touching on some expressions and snags that happened, that I came across with in my past week. So as you might already know, I have some private students, and sometimes I'm teaching and I forget how to say something in English, and sometimes I forget how to say something in Portuguese, and this happens. I'm not perfect. And I took notes of these expressions and words that my students were trying to know the meaning or not exactly the meaning. They were trying to know how to say these expressions in English, and I didn't remember. So I decided to take notes and share with all of you. Some of you might find it very interesting. Some of you might find boring. I don't know. We shall see. So the first one, by the way, if you don't know what snags is, snag is a problem or a difficulty. And sometimes British people, they say, oh, I hit a snag. So to hit a snag is you encountered a problem. You are faced with a problem. And I was faced with a problem the past week. And my first snag was how to translate quem nunca. Right? We use this a lot in Portuguese, and it's very easy to translate it to English, to translate this into English. However, I don't know why at the time of my lesson with this particular student, I just didn't know how to translate that into English. So I told her, you know what, I will take notes and we're going to talk about it afterwards. So these are the 3 sentences that I came up with, and it all revolves around the translation of this expression revolves around the auxiliary. I will try to explain to you in detail. So if I say, for example, I made a pig of myself, we are using which verb tense? The past, right? Yes. So the past tense. What auxiliary verb do we use when saying something in the past tense? Did. Exactly. So if I say I made a cake, it's in the past tense. Now, if I say eu não fiz o bolo, you would say I didn't make the cake. If I say você fez o bolo, did you make the cake? So you are all those 3 sentences, they are in the past tense. Okay? Now, did is the auxiliary of simple past. So I made a pig of myself. If your friend comes up to you and says, oh, Raíza, I made a pig of myself. I made a pig of myself. I ate too much. And you want to reply to them, quem nunca? You just have to think who and the auxiliary in the negative form. So, who didn't? Quem não? It would be something as in, quem não? I made a pig of myself. Quem não? Quem nunca aqui, ó, meu filho? Everyone ate too much. Everyone made a pig out of themselves. You know, so I made a pig of myself. Who didn't? The same goes for this sentence here. I think I said too much. I think I overshared. I talked too much about my personal life. And you want to say, my friend, quem não? Who didn't? Why? Because said is in the past tense. And who is the auxiliary of the past tense? Did. So who didn't? Now, the second one, I'm complicating it a bit. This verb tense is the present perfect continuous. If you haven't learned it yet, don't worry too much. You can still use who didn't. But for example, I've been eating a lot. You say, oh, I've been eating a lot lately. Oh my goodness. I've been making a pig of myself. And you want to use the same auxiliary to say quem nunca. If here you are using the present perfect, who is the auxiliary of present perfect? Have. Therefore, you need to use who hasn't. Because remember the conjugation. I have, you have, he, she, it, has. Okay? So, who hasn't? I've been eating a lot. My friend, who hasn't? This would be the way that you would say quem nunca. Okay, so you need to, but if you think, my goodness, Raíza, but I don't know the difference between present perfect and simple past, don't worry, you can still use who didn't. Okay, use who didn't. All right, now, you can also say this expression here that should not be translated literally or word for word because it wouldn't make much sense in Portuguese, to be fair. So you could say, oh, Raíza, for example, I made a pig of myself. You could reply, been there, done that. Been there, done that. Oh, I think I said too much. Oh, been there, done that. Been there, done that. I cannot guarantee that this idiom will work in every context. I cannot guarantee that. However, I'd say 7 times out of 10 it will work. Yep. Okay, I won't go into much detail here because things might get, I think I will overcomplicate things a little bit. So just let's leave it at that. But you can say quem nunca these 2 ways. So you either say who didn't, or you can say, oh, my friend, been there, done that. All right? Good. If you didn't understand, if you think it was very confusing, leave a comment down below. But remember, this is a topic that is for intermediate students. If you're still studying basics, if you are a beginner, it's normal for you to have trouble understanding this. Okay, the next one is afetado. So the context is, I was talking to a student and I don't know exactly what she wanted to say. I think she wanted to say that someone was really, alguém era muito afetado. Tipo, this was the context. However, we have a problem. We have a snag here in this situation because even though the word afetado exists in English, you can say affected, it doesn't have this meaning that she wanted to convey. So, for example, if you say, I found her very affected, I found her very affected, or I found her artificial and not sincere. So if you say I found Katja very affected, this means that you found Katja very artificial and not sincere. In other words, you found her falciane. Yeah, falciane. If you are my student from Jornada, not from Jornada, from Buy Me a Coffee, there are 2 hyperlinks here. You can click here and it will take you to the definition on Cambridge Dictionary. Now, affected means, in this context, means someone that is not sincere. Falciane. Okay? Now, in this context that my student was talking about, she was talking about someone that is very theatrical, someone that moves their arms a lot, they speak loudly, they laugh loudly. So in this case, affected wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. I would say that this person is showy. Someone who likes to attract attention to themselves. So you can say, for example, Paulo is very showy. Like Maria is very showy. So you see, we cannot translate things word for word. Be really careful with that. We have some words are very similar. When you look at them, they look similar, but the meaning is completely different. It will depend on the context. So long story short, affected means falciane. Someone that is artificial and not very sincere. All right? Now, the next one was really interesting. Moeda de troca. My student wanted to say, this is uma moeda de troca. Eu dou isso, você dá aquilo, né? There is an exchange. And so this word here, this expression is bargaining chip. Bargaining chip. By the way, let me include the phonetic transcription. Bear with me. So this is the phonetic transcription. Bargaining chip. Bargaining chip. You see this snake here is the sound of sh. So chip. Okay? Bargaining chip. So the workers use the threat of a strike as a bargaining chip in their negotiations. So the workers used the threat of a strike as a bargaining chip in their negotiations. So very interesting idiom and expression for us to use, because we do the same in Portuguese. Okay? And be careful with the pronunciation of this word here. This th is not pronounced, so it's just like a na coming out of your mouth. It's threat. Now, the next one, uma pessoa devagar. This one was really interesting because my student, she wanted to say, Raíza, eu sou uma pessoa devagar. Eu faço as coisas devagar. And there are there is an adjective for this, like sluggish. I usually say sometimes I have days during my week where I'm feeling very sluggish. But you can't say that someone has as a personality trait that they are sluggish. I don't think it makes much sense. Because one thing is when you have the state of you are feeling in a certain way that day, and something else entirely is for you to say that this is part of your personality. And in this case, what my student was trying to tell me is that she is a person that does things at her own pace. Ela é uma pessoa devagar na vida. That's what she was trying to say. She was not saying, hoje eu tô devagar. No, it's not something that is happening that day. She is that way. That's what she was trying to convey. So I'd say, and I didn't know how to translate that at the time of the lesson. And I told her, okay, bear with me. I'm going to have a look into this and I'll tell you later. So you can say she works at her own pace. And I wish I could say the same for me. I think sometimes I'm a machine. And that's why I struggle with my mental health sometimes. Because I'm very protective. I'm very, very protective. But it's not normal. Anyway, but this is another kettle of fish. É outros 500. But the thing is, when you want to say someone, eu sou devagar, she works at her own pace. Now, if you want to say, now, if you're talking about wait, I'm stammering here. But if you're talking about someone else, and you are using a disapproving tone, because my student, she was not using a disapproving tone. She was not saying, eu sou uma pessoa muito devagar. No, she's like, eu sou uma pessoa devagar. Eu faço as coisas no meu tempo. Now, if you're trying to criticize someone like that, then it would depend on the context. I would say, yeah, so-and-so is really slow. I would say, then in that context, I would say, so-and-so is really slow. Yeah. Yeah, because I've heard them using that way. I'm thinking perhaps there are synonyms. So you see, it will depend on the context. Because if you are criticizing someone, then you can use slow. Now, if you're talking about the fact that you just like to do the things at your own pace, then this is not exactly a criticism. You're just stating a fact. And it's not something bad. I don't think so. I don't think so. Does that make sense? If you want to have a chinwag about this expression, just leave a comment down below. I know it's complicated. Now, pronunciation snags. I have a problem with this structure. Yes, I do. You think, Raíza, you are a teacher. How come you have problems with this pronunciation? Well, my friend, I do, because I'm not perfect. And I struggle with triple vowels, with triple vowel sounds. I struggle a lot. And this is one of them. So my student, she wanted to say this is structure. And I was like, what is going on? How can I say that? And I couldn't. I just couldn't say it properly. But I'm going to try it now. And I'm not going to edit this bit. No. So we did it on our own. We did it on our own. On our own. So I included the phonetic transcription because this helps me. It's funny because some Brazilians, they tell me, Raíza, but I can't read these words, like these things here. Well, if you learn phonetics, if you learn the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, you will learn how to read the sounds. If you become my student, you will learn how to read these sounds. And they are very useful. Because then when you start reading these sounds, you understand how everything is said. And we are very visual beings. So this is extremely helpful. So now I'm trying to cover it. We did it on our own. We did it on our own. On our own. On our own. Yeah, we did it on our own. Now I'm saying it, but when I was teaching my student, Barbara, I was like, it's terrible. Really, really terrible. So we did it on our own. Now, always take notes of the, of problems that you might have with pronunciation or anything else, really. Because if you don't log your issues, how can you study? How can you improve it? I have loads of notes spread everywhere with things that I have problems with in English. I do. I have loads of problems. Oh, my friends, if only you knew. Okay, now this one, the last one for today. I spend my whole life saying didactic, but it's actually didactic. 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 Yeah. So didactic, we use this word in Portuguese as a good thing. When we say, esse professor é muito didático. In English, my friend, is not exactly the same. Come with me. Didactic, intended, look at that, mainly disapproving. So intended to teach, especially in a way that is too determined or eager, and often fixed and unwilling to change. Oh, I know lots of teachers that have a didactic approach to teaching. Loads of teachers. And yeah, a didactic literature intended to teach people a moral lesson. So didactic is not a good thing in English. Not a good thing. So don't come to your teacher, to your professor, whatever, at the uni and say, you're very didactic. I don't think they're going to take it very well. And I found out about this week. I think I've never used this word, actually. But then my student said it. And first I had questions about the pronunciation. And when I looked it up and I saw it was didactic, that was shock number one. I was flabbergasted. And then two, when I read the definition, I was like, my goodness. So every day is a learning day, isn't it? And of course, I had to share with you guys. So, okay. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a very long video. And remember, Buy Me a Coffee is my blog. I love teaching on Buy Me a Coffee. And there are loads of pronunciation tips in there. If you want to know more, contact me, leave a comment, and I'll see you next time. Bye.